Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. And today, well, you folks have really steered us in a fascinating direction, I think. This time,
Yeah,
Everton Football Club, and we're going to really dig into their history.
absolutely.
You've sent us a ton of material. I mean, there's this really neat abridged history, which gives us like the broad strokes.
Yeah, it's a great overview.
Then there's this really interesting Q&A that kind of dives into some of the key questions that, fans and historians have debated.
Right, those burning questions, yeah.
Exactly. And then we've even got a whole study guide thing, which is packed with little details. I mean, there's even a quiz in here.
Wow, a
A
quiz.
quiz, yeah. So, like, proper in-depth stuff.
Love that.
And then, of course, we have a full, complete history in PDF form. So, really no shortage of information
We're
here.
going deep on this one.
We're going deep. That's the whole point, right? The deep dive.
Exactly.
So, our goal, as always, is to kind of go through all of this, pull out the most interesting bits, the things that maybe even surprised us, and really try to, understand what makes this club tick.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's about getting to the essence of Everton.
Yeah, exactly.
And looking at these sources, I mean, you really get a sense of this club that's so deeply intertwined with the history of football itself
Oh, absolutely.
from its very beginnings.
Yeah.
It's a story that mirrors the evolution of the sport in England.
Okay, so why don't we rewind all the way back to the start? I mean, 1878, we're talking Victorian England here.
Yeah, way back.
The club starts its life as St. Domingo's FC.
St. Domingo's FC, what a name.
It's got a certain ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's got that Victorian charm you mentioned.
Right.
But what's really interesting is the direct link to the local St. Domingo Methodist New Connection Chapel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this is quite common back then. A lot of early football clubs sprouted from these religious or social organizations,
Right.
places where the community would already gather. It really grounds Everton in that local context from day one.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's all about that community feel.
Abs-
And then just a year later, in 1879, they switch things up. They become Everton Football Club.
Everton FC.
It feels almost like a statement, a bit more ambitious, a bit bolder.
Yeah, like they're ready to step onto the bigger stage.
Exactly. Move beyond just the parish and represent something a bit bigger.
Exactly. It signifies a desire to encompass that wider geographical identity to become the team for the whole district.
Right. The club for everyone in Everton.
Precisely. And that move was crucial. It really cemented those deep roots in Liverpool that we still see today.
Okay, so let's fast forward now to 1888, and this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah, this is big.
Because Everton is right there at the very beginning of organized football in England.
A founding member of the Football League.
Founding member, I mean, that really tells you something about their influence right from the get-go.
It's not just about being present at the creation. It shows how organized they were, how proactive
Right.
in shaping the structure of competitive football in England.
Wow, they were pioneers then.
Absolutely. They helped lay the groundwork for the game as we know it.
Okay, so early influence, we've established that. Now let's talk about early success.
Let's do it.
Because the sources point to their first league title coming pretty quickly in 1891.
A league title that early on, it must have been an incredible feeling.
Yeah, imagine that. I mean, they're basically right there at the top of English football from the very start.
It sets a precedent, right? It establishes a legacy.
Right, a taste of glory.
Exactly. A benchmark of success that would shape the aspiration of the club and its fans.
Wow, so they win the league early, but then they don't stop there. In 1906, they add the FA Cup to their collection.
The FA Cup, that's huge. I mean, within just a couple of decades, they've already won the two biggest trophies in English football.
I mean, that's got to give you a foundation to drink on, right?
Oh, absolutely. It instills that winning mentality, that belief.
Right, and that they can compete with the very best.
Exactly. And it's more than just the trophies themselves. It's about establishing a culture, a tradition of winning.
So fast forward a bit more, and we hit the interwar period, and this is where things get even more interesting.
Oh, yeah, things really start to heat up.
A second league title arrives in 1928, and this is where a certain legendary figure really enters the picture.
Dixie Dean,
Dixie
a
Dean.
name that's synonymous with Everton.
Absolutely. I mean, what's so remarkable about that 1928 title isn't just that they run it, it's Dean's individual contribution.
It's unbelievable. He scores 60 league goals that season.
60 goals.
A record that still stands today, almost a century later.
It's mind-blowing, right?
It's the stuff of legends, and his name becomes forever linked with that championship.
I mean, 60 goal, it just defies belief in modern football, let alone back then.
It really does. The study guide brightly points out his legendary status.
And it's not just a number, right? It really paints a picture of this player who was just utterly dominant.
Absolutely. He was a force of nature.
And that kind of achievement, you can't underestimate the impact it has on a club.
It becomes part of their identity.
Right, like a mythical figure.
Exactly. A standard of excellence that every striker who comes after is measured against.
Right, and it shows what's possible at Everton.
Exactly. It sets the bar incredibly high.
So they've got this incredible goal scorer, but they're also still winning trophies as a team. We've got a third league title in 1932.
Yeah, they were a force to be reckoned with.
And a second FA Cup in 1933. So this isn't just a flash in the pan. They're a consistent force to be reckoned with.
They were building something special.
Exactly. And then, well, 1939 happens, World War II breaks out, and as our abridged history tells us, everything comes to a standstill.
Yeah, football takes a back seat, and you can't help but wonder what might have been for Everton.
Right. I mean, they were at the top of their
A
game.
real powerhouse.
Exactly. It's one of those big what-ifs in football history.
Absolutely. The war years changed everything for so many clubs.
Okay, so we move into the post-war period, and the sources talk about some mixed fortunes before a resurgence in the 1960s.
Yeah, it's understandable right after such a huge global event.
Right, teams have to rebuild.
New players emerge, the whole landscape of football shifts.
Exactly, so it takes time to find their feet again.
And Everton's journey back to the top during this period really highlights their resilience.
Okay, so the 1960s see them return to prominence, and a lot of this is attributed to the arrival of a very influential manager,
Harry Catterick.
Harry Catterick.
He's a legend at Everton.
The Q&A doesn't hold back in praising him, and you can see why.
Oh, yeah.
A fourth league title in 1963, then an FA Cup in 1966. Under his leadership, he completely revitalizes the club.
He brings tactical nous, a winning mentality, and look at the results.
2 major trophies in just a few years. That's a proper dynasty, isn't it?
Absolutely. He builds a team that knows how to win.
And that winning mentality continues into the next decade because they win their 5th league title in 1970 with Catterick still in charge.
It's that consistency that's so impressive with Catterick.
Right, he builds teams that can not only win, but win over a sustained period.
Exactly. That's the hallmark of a truly great manager.
But as with any club, there are ups and downs, and the late 1970s bring another period of struggle.
It's the nature of football, right?
Yeah, teams rise and fall, tactics change.
Maintaining that top spot is incredibly difficult.
So this period of difficulty, it's almost like a setup for what comes next.
Oh, yeah. Because what comes next is something truly special.
The 1980s.
The golden era of Everton football.
And this is all under the leadership of another iconic manager,
Howard Kendall.
Howard Kendall. I mean, the sources are unanimous on this. This is Everton's most successful period.
Absolutely. They were unstoppable.
Okay, so just to recap the trophy haul here, because it's pretty remarkable.
Lay it on me.
A 4th FA Cup in 1984.
Amazing.
A 6th league title, and their first major European trophy, the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1985.
And that European Cup Winners' Cup, that was massive.
I mean, that puts them among the elite clubs in Europe, doesn't it?
Without a doubt, they were at the pinnacle of the game.
And to top it all off, a 7th league title in 1987. It's a period that Evertonians still talk about with a twinkle in their eye.
It was a magical time for the club.
And there's always a but, isn't there?
Sadly, yeah.
That European success is tinged with sadness because of the Heysel Stadium disaster in 1985.
A tragedy that had a huge impact on football.
And it leads to a ban on English clubs in European competitions.
Which directly affects Everton, of course.
Right, they're at the top of European football, and then suddenly the door is slammed shut.
It's a cruel twist of fate.
It's really heartbreaking when you think about it.
It robbed them of the chance to build on that success.
Absolutely, and it undoubtedly had long-term consequences for the club, both financially and in terms of their reputation.
No doubt about it. It's a turning point in their history.
Okay, so let's move into a bit more recent history. 1992, the Premier League is born. And guess who's there as a founding member?
Everton, of course.
Everton, they've been a constant presence in the top flight of English football from the very start.
It's incredible consistency.
It really is. And they add another FA Cup to their collection in 1995, which must have been a real boost.
Oh yeah, a reminder of those winning days.
But the sources also talk about some struggles for consistency in these early years of the Premier League.
It was a new era for English football, right?
Right. New money, new challenges.
A much more competitive landscape.
Exactly. And then comes the David Moyes era from 2002 to 2013, and he really puts his stamp on the club.
Moyes is an interesting figure.
Yeah, he's often credited with modernizing Everton.
He brought stability and a clear vision.
Exactly. And he establishes them as a consistent top-half team in the Premier League with regular European football.
He made them competitive again.
Absolutely. And since then, there have been other managers, Roberto Martinez, Carlo Ancelotti, but those sources describe it as mixed fortunes.
It feels like they've been searching for that missing ingredient, that spark.
Right, to take them back to the very top.
Exactly. Back to challenging for major honors.
Okay, so let's bring things right up to date because there are some really significant developments happening at Everton right now.
This is where things get exciting.
First, there's the new Bramley-Moore Docks Stadium, which is a huge statement of intent.
Oh yeah, it's a game changer.
And then there's the new ownership, which always brings fresh energy and hopefully some financial muscle.
It feels like a new chapter is beginning.
Exactly. And the sources are very clear about the ambition for 2025, which is to return to former glories.
A return to the top.
Exactly. With a strong squad and a clear vision for success.
It's a bold vision, but with their history, it's certainly achievable.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but let's just take a moment to really acknowledge some of the key figures who have shaped Everton's story.
Sounds good.
First up, we have to talk about Dixie Dean again. I mean, his goal-scoring feats are just
And
legendary.
he's an icon.
He's a symbol of Everton's attacking prowess.
Exactly. And his legacy lives on.
And then there's Harry Catterick, who brought that sustained period of success in the 60s and early
He
70s.
built winning teams.
Exactly. He knew how to get the best out of his
A
players.
true master tactician.
Then we have Howard Kendall, who is widely regarded as Everton's greatest manager.
He oversaw their golden era.
Exactly, and he brought a style of play that was both exciting and effective.
It was a joy to watch.
And we can't forget David Moyes, who brought stability and consistency in the Premier League era.
He modernized the club
Right, he adapted them to the challenges of a new era.
and laid the foundations for future success.
And even a figure like Carlo Ancelotti brought a certain prestige to the club.
It shows their ambition to attract top talent.
Exactly, they're not afraid to aim high.
And that's something to be admired.
Okay, now of course, no discussion of Everton would be complete without mentioning their rivalry with Liverpool.
The Merseyside Derby.
One of the fiercest rivalries in world football.
It's more than just a local derby.
Right, it's deeply ingrained in the city itself.
The history, the passion, it's all there.
And it's shaped both clubs, hasn't it?
Absolutely, it's pushed them to be better.
And created a unique footballing culture in the city.
Exactly. You can't talk about one without the other.
Finally, I want to touch on the evolution of Everton's identity and culture because it seems so rooted in those working class origins.
Yeah, the community's at the heart of Everton.
And the fans have been through thick and thin, hasn't they?
They've seen the highs and the lows, but their support has never wavered.
It's a testament to their loyalty and their passion.
Absolutely. It's what makes Everton special.
So to sum up, Everton's story is one of deep roots, significant success, legendary figures, and a constant desire to get back to the top.
It's a compelling narrative.
It really is, and it makes you wonder what the future holds.
Yeah, what's next for Everton?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
They've got this brand new stadium, new ownership, a clear ambition to return to glory, but what will be the key ingredient?
What will make the difference?
Right. Will it be the players they bring in?
Possibly.
The manager they appoint?
Maybe.
The financial backing they have?
Could be.
Or is it something else, something deeper?
Something intangible.
Exactly. That spirit, that resilience, that connection to the fans that has always been there.
It's a fascinating question.
It is, and I think it's one that will only be answered in time.
Time will tell.
It will. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the history of Everton Football Club.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep on diving deep.